to impose their will and their structure of life upon the global population.
My feeling is that Skull and Bones is less a conscious conspiracy, less a cabal than a kind of unconscious community of interests that people who have power in American society tend to gravitate together. A lot of conspiracy theorists take, what I thought was a kind of complex, nuanced view of how power works in America and paint a more lurid picture of a kind of, one world conspiracy.
When we continue, Conspiracy's Unholy Three, the three secret societies where the elite go for postgraduate studies in global domination.
The actions that these secret societies have propagated through the last century or so have only led to wars, rebellion, dissension, depressions.
Each new member of Yale's Skull and Bones Society is given a secret nickname, supposedly known only to his fellow bonesmen. George W. Bush reportedly goes by the nickname Temporary. History's Mysteries will continue here on the History Channel.
We now return to Secret Societies on History's Mysteries.
Conspiracy advocates contend that the world is a web controlled by one spider, the Illuminati, that disseminates a globalist agenda through a network of secret societies. The inner circle of the web is made up of three organizations.
The Bilderberg Group, the Council on Foreign Relations, and the Trilateral Commission have an interlocking leadership. The head of the World Bank, James Wolfensohn, is a member of this network. So is the head of the World Trade Organization. So is the Chancellor of Germany. So is the Prime Minister of Britain, Tony Blair, and a stream of Presidents of the United States, Secretaries of State, the last 6 Secretary Generals of NATO.
There's something extremely dangerous and alluring about the combination of secrecy and world ambition. What could be more threatening than a group that is in the shadows and trying to dominate your life?
The actions that these secret societies have propagated through the last century or so have only led to wars, rebellion, dissension, depressions.
The oldest of the three organizations, the Council on Foreign Relations, is founded in 1921.
It is simply people interested and involved in foreign policy getting together to meet each other, hobnob, make contacts, hear new ideas, argue with their opponents, the sort of things that people who are engaged in political intellectual life do all the time.
Conspiracy theorists disagree and point to one particular event as proof of the Council's hidden globalist agenda.
There's no greater example of the way the Council on Foreign Relations has manipulated history than looking at the profound effect that the United Nations has had on the world and its agencies. And the United Nations is with us because of the Council on Foreign Relations. A committee of the Council on Foreign Relations wrote the proposal. They handed it to Roosevelt, and he then announced it as if it was his policy. At the first meeting in San Francisco to launch the United Nations, 74 of the American delegation were members of the Council on Foreign Relations.
It is this group, conspiracists contend, that from its founding has also pulled the strings of an American war machine.
When Lyndon Johnson took office and began to take Vietnam as his top priority, he was surrounded by what he was known as his wise men. And almost every one of them, to a man, were members of the Council on Foreign Relations and were pushing for that globalist agenda and for their agenda, which included our control over Southeast Asia.
In 1973, the chairman of the board of the Council on Foreign Relations is David Rockefeller. He brings together some of its most powerful members with elite private citizens from North America, Western Europe, and Japan to form a new 180-member group. It is called the Trilateral Commission.
Most Americans really first became aware of these secret societies with the Jimmy Carter administration because Jimmy Carter, the peanut farmer governor of Georgia, was brought into the Trilateral Commission back in 1972, and within 4 years, he's groomed and runs and wins as President of the United States. I once had the opportunity to interview his budget director, Bert Lance, and I asked him, well, you know, what's the deal about the Trilateral Commission? And he simply smiled and he said, I was the only member of the cabinet that was not a member, and now I'm out.
Further proof of the group's influence, according to Mars, comes in 1980 when Ronald Reagan, who is not a member of the Council on Foreign Relations or the Trilateral Commission, runs for president.
And he pledged in New Hampshire that if elected, he would investigate these secret societies. He also said that he would never accept the secret society member George Bush as a member of his administration. So he rushes into the National Convention late at night, very unprecedented, and says, I choose George Bush as my running mate. So George Bush, the secret society man, is now in the catbird seat. And then just a month or two after Reagan took office, he's shot